Hi, I'm Miriam Quitelis. I'm a Cogno Movement practitioner. Welcome to Let's Cogno That, where every video explores a fun and creative way to improve your life. Let's go have some fun. Hey guys, I'm Miriam Quitelis. Welcome to Let's Cogno That. So I had a really long hike yesterday, and during my hikes, I usually get these ideas that I'd like to share. And one of the things that has been coming up in the last couple of weeks has been how thought patterns become immutable. I meet people daily who feel very strongly that they are solidly the things that they claim they are. And let me explain. Oftentimes, we get stuck in a thought pattern so much so that we never question it anymore. And we go around saying these things about ourselves. And in doing that, we solidify those thought patterns even more. So you might think, what's wrong with that? Well, there's a lot wrong with that, because when we verbally sound out these thought patterns or what they are, we actually could make it stronger and make it much, much harder to exist without them. And they also shape all kinds of experiences. They shape who we meet. They shape what kinds of experiences we have and don't have. And in turn, it limits our lives. Now, these ideas didn't come up on their own. I do listen to podcasts when I am hiking. And this was inspired by an interview with a thought leader, and his name is Krys Ra. And I'm going to include his link to that interview. Actually, it's 2 interviews in the description section. And so if you want to check it out yourself. So let's get started. I very much believe in we teach others about life by actually sharing about our own lives. And it's something that I believe very strongly, that you don't change others by force. You don't change others by wagging your finger at them. You definitely change others by just shining as brightly as you can and letting others be in your light, and hopefully they're inspired. So that's how I have learned from others that have inspired me. I have actually never, ever taken advice or learned from others that have any kind of force to them or a finger wagging type of approach. So I want to share a couple of things about myself that I thought were very solid, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So let's start with me in my 20s. I really believe that I carried sadness in me. And I know I've spoke about this in other videos, but I really believe very strongly about this one thought pattern, that I had sadness in me. And the reason I believe this was because I would cry in movies, and I would often be brought to tears when I'm listening to music, sad music, or some music that would remind me of something. And every time that happened, I remember thinking that thought, I carry sadness in me. And that is a actual thought pattern. And it is something that I thought was so solidly me. Like there was no way that this was not who I was. Another thought pattern I always have and have worked on very much in the last couple of years is a self-worth pattern, and or lack of self-worth. And that has shaped the way that I interact with others. It's shaped the way that I don't interact with others or who I interact with. Another one that I've shed in the more distant past has been the one about women not being worth much without a man. And that is a very cultural thing. From South America. And I do see in my community, I see women who are either still with the same person, despite them, let's say, being abusive verbally or physically, and also cheating on her sometimes, and they're still in that relationship. And a lot of times it's brought about by this very idea that women are basically not worth anything if they're not with someone. So it is scarier to be alone than to be with someone who verbally abuses you or beats you or cheats on you. And that is a thought pattern that is very hurtful, obviously, for very obvious reasons, to the woman who is in that relationship. And very much what I've noticed is if you are in that type of relationship, you are very much believing in that thought pattern, so much so that there is no way that anyone outside of your world can convince you. Another one is just approval of others. That thought pattern was based on the idea that I needed an approval. I needed someone to be looking at me and evaluating me in a positive way for me to do well. And I'm very proud to say that the approval of others is not number one on my list for sure these days. The other one is a thought pattern I had around tattoos. We often inherit thought patterns from our culture. And one that I inherited from my culture about tattoos is that you don't love your body if you get a tattoo, or you don't value your body if you get a tattoo. And I had to really break away from that because I do value my body. I actually value the decorations that I put on my body. I had to break away from that need to feel part of that cultural belief. And that's kind of scary. Breaking away from a cultural belief can be super, super scary. There's a couple of other examples, such as thinking I'm an extrovert. Those types of labels are troublesome to me because there are times that I am an extrovert and there's times that I love being alone and I don't want to talk to anybody. And I love just enjoying working on my own projects. This particular one made me realize that we really shouldn't have any labels on ourselves, because whenever we do, we actually create a stagnant environment. And interestingly, I was just speaking to people at church yesterday, and we were all talking about how important it is to have a fan and have air moving in a room. And that's what makes me think about whenever we sort of create a label like that for ourselves, we're essentially sealing all vents in the room and energy becomes stagnant. Those are my examples of some things out of thousands that I have worked on my own, as far as working away these seemingly solid thought patterns about myself and then realizing that they're not solid, and dissolving them, I actually freed myself. All this amazing energy is released, because once you release these thought patterns, we realize just how much energy went into maintaining them. Like, how does this really work? Now, we have to start with the premise that everything in thought pattern is just energy, and thoughts carry weight. So ideas carry weights, and then ideas become things like political parties. Ideas become cultural beliefs. Enough ideas come together to create such a thing as cultural beliefs or beliefs about others. These beliefs are so solid, like they pack so hard that they become an atmosphere. It becomes its own little maelstrom of energy. And of course, people around it are so pulled by that energy that they believe that it is truth, and because of its force. If you look at the law of attraction, like attracts like, that principle states that similar things are drawn to one another, and that people's thoughts attract similar results. So again, thoughts become things. These things become bigger and bigger and bigger, and we believe them to be true. Like attracts like, and it just keeps kind of magnetizing things to it. Where we lose our power in this situation is we're so drawn to it. It's so strong, and we stop questioning. We start just knowing that we're waiting to be told, which waiting to be shown. We're waiting. We're always sort of stagnant. We're waiting to sort of be handed down ways of thinking. We think that's how to think. We think thinking is taking a side and just sort of being handed down how to think. So let's look at some solutions. Obviously, the first one is working on beliefs about ourselves. And the way that we guide ourselves through this forest of beliefs is comfort. Does your comfort matter? Always think that comfort, peace, joy, contentment are all birthrights. So let's just think for a second. We are meant to be comfort. We are meant to be in peace. We are meant to be content. And I'm thinking right now of the analogy of if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? That analogy is important because same thing is like, let's say suffering. If you suffer in silence, does it matter? Does it matter to who? Who should it matter to? It should matter to you. Your own suffering should matter. Your own contentment level should matter. And so we always start with that these things are birthrights. These things are the way it's supposed to be. So that way we can quickly identify the things that are not right and the thought patterns that are not helping us. So back to contentment, peace, comfort, belonging. I forgot about belonging. So all those things are a premise. That is what should be happening. And I know it's a really slight shift, and it's a shift in thinking that then highlights the problem much easier. Because if you don't think your discomfort matter, you're never going to see that maybe this relationship is not right for you. You know, if you don't think your discomfort matters, you're never going to see that speaking up for yourself is important. So you see how that slight shift of knowing I am meant to be content, I'm meant to be in peace, I'm meant to be in comfort, I'm meant to be feeling belonging. If you don't believe those things to begin with, then nothing is going to be highlighted. Okay. So once you see life through those lenses, that this is how it's supposed to be, and then it's super easy to catch the things that are wrong. Now, Krys Ra, from who I mentioned earlier, he said this amazing thing that I had to write down during my hike, and it was becoming your own atmosphere. And oh my goodness, my mind blew up. How do you even start doing that? How do you even start becoming your own atmosphere? Just think about how much power and independence that requires. It goes back to my whole idea of how our body is actually a tool. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. What's the purpose of the physical? The purpose of the physical is so that we can use our body as a tool. It's a barometer. It's feeling, it's sensing, and it's meant to be there for a reason. It's meant to be there to sort of alert to us when these things are not right, when things are not right. So just like political parties, just like leaders, just like these cultural institutions, you too can put out a force. You too can, like Krys Ra said, become your own atmosphere. Now, one amazing advice that Krys Ra gave in helping us get to this place is always feel free to question the narrative of whatever thought pattern entity you're inside of. And if the people or the organization, if they get mad at you, like if you cannot freely be you, you cannot freely question the narrative, that is a good indication that you are in a situation that is stifling you. And that might not be a place where you can really get in tune with yourself. Becoming your own atmosphere, to me, means becoming a tribe of one. There's an old story about a monastery and a cat. When we're meditating, the cats that lived in a monastery would be making so much noise that they couldn't concentrate. So the teachers began to tie the cats, or the cat, I'm not sure if it was many or one, every evening before meditation. And that way it allowed the meditation to continue without any distraction. And then before long, tying up the cat became part of the meditation ritual. This is a great example of how rituals, and rituals could be within a religious institution or ways of thinking or thought patterns, how rituals can sometimes be calcified, rituals that mean nothing to us, rituals that make no sense. So there's so many of those rituals or thought patterns in our lives that, one, take up a lot of space, take up a lot of energy, take up a lot of energy to uphold, to just keep thinking these things, and make us, in essence, bend over backwards to try to continue to think this way. So the question to ask here is, what rituals do you have that take up too much room, that are unnecessary, suck energy, and could potentially make you ill? Because we all know that thoughts are things. We all know that illnesses are sometimes a reaction to thought patterns. So if we don't listen to our intuition, we don't listen to our inner self, a lot of times our body will kick up illnesses to kind of make us pay attention. And rituals in this case is, what solid thinking patterns are we just carrying around with us that are taking up so much room and taking up so much energy? And if we were to just let them go, what will that allow in our lives that is going to change our lives for the better? So another solution I have is to start really, really focusing in our imagination. And I'm not just saying this because I'm an art teacher and I'm an artist. I'm saying this because imagination does matter. And what we think about things matters so much. So we live in a creative space, and this is not me saying this. This is, again, Krys Ra. I just love listening to him. We live in a creative space. So focus on the experience you want. And that goes back to the law of attraction. And like attracts like. The principle, again, it states that similar things are drawn to one another. So when your mind, like if you put those two things together, your mind is incredibly powerful. If your mind is focused on the experience that you want, imagine what could happen. Move aside all the things that kick up in you, things that you don't want. Okay. Like, don't worry about those things for the moment. Just leave them to the side and try for a week, just using your imagination and focusing on the experiences you want. Write about it, dream about it, live in that bubble of the experiences that you want and see how things change. Be your own scientist. I know you're going to get sick of me right now talking about Krys Ra, but another amazing thing he said in his interview was that thoughts are gravitic. So let's look at what gravitic means. Something is caused by or powered by a force that causes two bodies or particles to accelerate towards each other. So thoughts accelerate towards each other. They're gravitic. So what you think is what you get. This is why it's so important to keep learning about your mind and the way your mind works, learning to listen to your inner voice, maybe figuring out how that can happen, either through meditation or hikes. This is what I do. I'm always hiking. I'm not really a good meditator, but I will hike for hours. And I do get a ton of information during my hikes that are really helpful for my well-being. The last advice I'm going to give, never making definitive comments about yourself. And every time I hear someone say a definitive comment about themselves, I'm always thinking, is that really true? Or you just believe that's true? So definitive comments about yourself, for example, I am this way, or I'm always this way. When you catch yourself making a definitive comment about yourself, ask if it's true. Like check in if it's true. Is my true identity attached to this comment? And what would happen if we questioned it? And this is where cognitive movement has been so incredibly helpful to me, because you can take those comments, you can take those thought patterns that you have and just do a session on those thought patterns. You know, I have a list going constantly on my phone when I'm driving. I'll put it on my list and I'll come home and I'll work on that specific thought pattern and see What's really behind it? Is it true? Is it solid? Is it just fed and maintained by fear from either my religion or by my upbringing or my parents or my culture? So what exactly is maintaining? What is the force that's maintaining this thought pattern? So cognitive movement has been incredibly essential in me leveling up my consciousness, really connecting with myself, because it's allowed me to work with each of these patterns that otherwise I thought were solid, immutable, unchangeable, and realize that everything is changeable. We're always changing. There are no boxes. We are a tribe of one. And I'm reminded of when you clean your bathtub with soap and maybe you haven't done it in a while, and you put the soap down and you let the chemicals do their work. And that is what cognitive movement does. It softens the soap scum and the stuff that you thought was there that just could never get out. All of a sudden, you can scrub it away. Krys Ra says, allow your body to resonate in the frequency of the question. That's exactly what Cogno does. It allows you to sit and be in an incredibly calm state and really focus on the question that you have about yourself. Are you this? Are you that? All of it bringing you to one conclusion where your own interpretation of life is the most important one for you. In other words, being comfortable in your own skin, being comfortable and feeling in joy, feeling connected, all those things are the end result of doing this work. At the end, I'm going to read a section of Krys Ra's free PDF that you get when you sign up to his mailing list, which I'm also going to put in the description section. The body of work is called 4 Ways to Enhance Your Life Through Ether Physics. And I'm going to read this one little section that I got from his PDF, and I think is very relevant to what we're talking about here. I would definitely use this if I were going to do a positive cognitive session on this. So here we go. Think of something you would like to see happen in the world or your life. As you're thinking of it, imagine the feeling, tone associated with that thought or experience. Now, let go of the details and focus all your energy on the feeling tone. Give that feeling tone a color or shape. Next, notice how the feeling tone begins to surround your entire body. Then breathe in and inhale the feeling tone's color and energy. Finally, observe every cell in your being becoming the frequency of that original thought. Create an experience in your mind where you are now actively experiencing the original thought you had in the beginning. So this is perfect. I think I'm going to go and do a session on this myself and not only work on the thought patterns that I need to chisel away at and melt, but I'm also going to be doing some positive cogno with this actual piece of writing right here that I just read to you. So that's it. You guys know I'm a practitioner. If you're interested in working with me, my information is right below. Thank you so much. Give yourself the gift of healing. And I so appreciate you.